The honourable member for York West.
Hear, hear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to add my comments onto this important debate today. I will be splitting my time with a member for Random Viewer and St. George's, who will follow me shortly. So as I rise today as the representative for York West, what I call the best riding in Canada, but I guess we all try to say that. I certainly believe it, and we have the best constituents around. But in as much as my riding is a wonderful place to live, work, and play, but like many communities, York West has been hit hard by the recession and the subsequent global economic slowdown. People are asking for help, and unfortunately the current government has again turned its back on my riding and others. On September the 1st, the 11th, the government announced its so-called plan to create jobs, a plan that doesn't even begin, of course, for several months. But then after my constituents and others will wait until January 2015 for help, they'll be handed a strategy that has no hope of creating any jobs. Quite to the contrary, the Conservative Small Business Job Credit has been panned by most economists. In fact, credible economists have called this plan exactly the opposite, a disincentive for companies to grow. In contrast, the Liberal counter-proposal would actually reward companies that are growing and creating new jobs for my constituents and for workers across Canada. And that's the choice, Mr. Speaker, a government that keeps looking backwards and trying the same failed and tired plans over and over and over again, or a Liberal plan that is forward-thinking and very practical.
Hear, hear.
Time and time again, this government has proven an ingrained ineptitude when it comes to financial management. Prime Minister fancies himself as an economist, but his ideas, which are growing more and more outlandish, are constantly out of step with industry, labour, and the financial community. So I now understand why the Conservatives spent $1 billion taxpayer dollars on advertising to boast about their so-called fiscal plan, because it takes $1 billion to create an ad campaign that tries to weave the words conservative and success into a single commercial, but it certainly is not supported by facts. For 8 years, this Prime Minister has been telling Canadians, with a wink, to trust him. He says his plan will put a chicken in every pot. But after all this time, Canada's employment numbers still trail our major trading partners. Over the past year, Canada has experienced very little job growth. From August 2013 to August 14, the entire country created a net 81,000 new jobs, with only a fraction of those being full-time. Sadly, a part-time job serving coffee, flipping burgers, or mending clothes is often not enough to raise a family on. These jobs are important, but they rarely offer pension security, growth opportunities, or wages over and above the poverty line. In contrast to Canada's dismal job creation performance, the UK created 775,000 jobs over the last 12 months, and the United States have created 2.2 million. This means that the percentage growth in total employment in the UK was up 2.6%. The US was up 1.5%, and unfortunately Canada was up a bleak 0.5%. The Prime Minister may like to crow about this record, but Canadians know that a flimsy crow is certainly not a chicken in every pot. This government has dumped hundreds of millions of dollars onto boardroom tables throughout Canada, and then justified that giveaway by promising that the payoff would protect Canadian jobs. Well, as we watched last week, the Stelco meltdown, killing hundreds of good manufacturing jobs, Canadians are growing weary of empty Conservative promises. The Minister of Finance wonders why Canadians are carrying more household debt than ever before. Well, this is why. The Minister of Finance wonders why Canadians are carrying more credit card debt than ever before. Well, this is why. People are not putting new yachts, cars, and summer homes on their credit cards. People are not extending their lines of credit to finance new capital ventures or exotic vacations. People are accumulating debt to pay for food, rent, daycare, education, medicine, and the other essentials of life. But the fact that this government would see all of this and still table a strategy like this EI plan clearly shows that they are out of touch. Of course, I understand why the need for intelligent policy will vex this particular Prime Minister and his front bench, so let me frame it another way. The Liberals have a real solution, an EI premium exemption for new jobs created in 15 and 16. This represents a benefit of up to $1.279.15 for each newly created job. For the same price as the Conservative scheme, our proposed EI premium exemption could help create over 175,000 new jobs. We must create the right conditions for jobs and growth that benefit the middle class. In effect, we want success around the kitchen tables, not just the boardroom tables. This requires investments in infrastructure, training, innovation, and expanding trade, as well as competitive tax rates. Under the Conservative scheme, only businesses with EI payroll taxes below $15,000 get any money back, a move that creates a perverse incentive for businesses to actually fire workers in order to get below the $15,000 threshold. In fact, Conservatives are proposing that the maximum benefit for a company which pays just under $15,000 in EI premiums would be $2,234. However, a company that pays $1 more would receive nothing at all. Economists, save for the one across the way, have pointed out that this could result in companies holding back on pay increases, reducing hours, or in the worst case scenario, laying employees off. Now, as strange and as confounding as this may seem, the Conservative scheme to create job offers up to $2,200 for firing a worker and only $190 for hiring a worker. Now, I suppose this reverse logic will be covered in the next round of commercials and ads the government will be commissioning at taxpayers' expense.
Of course.
But I hope so, because when presented with these numbers and when given the actual facts, Canadians will make their own determination. And I know my constituents will see through this deception. Now, Mr. Speaker, the NDP have spoken very critically today of this motion, but I fear that their opposition stems from partisanship rather than the facts.
I think you're right.
So first, let's look at the NDP costing of our proposal. The NDP claims that our plan would create at least 1 million, but probably closer to 1.5 million net new jobs next year. Well, that's great, but given that there are 1.3 million unemployed Canadians, that would be quite a feat. Although, if it did create 1.5 million new jobs, the income tax generated alone by those new employees would more than pay for the cost of the credit.
That's right.
So just to be clear, on the one hand, the NDP is arguing that under our Canadian plan for the workers, Canadian businesses and governments would all be big winners. But on the other hand, they say they can't support it. Second point, the NDP's last platform had this commitment. They specifically promised to establish a job creation tax credit that would have provided funding on a per-hire basis. Specifically, they promised to give employers a 1-year rebate on CPP contributions for each new hire.
Oh, wow.
So, according, though, to the NDP rhetoric today, they are accusing Jack Layton of having wanted to raid the CPP for his pet projects. Imagine.
I can't believe that.
So, Mr. Speaker, instead of trying to sow divisions in the House, I think the NDP should really take a second look at this motion and reconsider it. Possibly they didn't fully understand it.
Vote with us and Jack.
So, Mr. Speaker, in 2008, the Prime Minister said the recession and the global economic slowdown would never happen. When Liberals disagreed, Conservatives accused us of fear-mongering. So starting in 2009, the Prime Minister raided the cupboard and spent nearly $100 billion on gazebos and other stimulus measures to end the recession that he said would never happen.
Oh, yes.
When Liberals disagreed, again Conservatives accused us of not being up to the task. Today we're faced by another fly-by-night Conservative plan to fix an economy that they said was not broken. And again, they are dismissing Liberal objections out of hand. So for 8 years, we've been listening to a Prime Minister with a legacy of being wrong on issues involving the nation's finances. Perhaps it's time for a fresh arm. Perhaps it's time to
think
take a
so.
look at the Liberal plan,
Hear,
a
hear.
plan that will create the right conditions for jobs and growth for Canadians and for Canada.
Here, here.
Questions and comments?